All right, Raleigh Carter here again with another video. I've been working on developing a gymnastics business model for the past 7 years on how to create a self-sustainable business along with how to drive growth autonomously. And so this is getting into my story, essentially, my process, my framework of how I believe this business model can come to be. So I have nothing to sell you in these videos. Everything I have, I want to give you for free to add as much value to you in your current situation as possible, with the hopes that if you apply some of this information and you see the results, then maybe we can work together in the future. So it's my selfish ambition. But here's some stuff you can apply, and it will work if you apply it. So that's pretty cool. In the previous video, I talked about getting somebody's attention. Okay, so how do you get somebody's attention? Why should you get somebody's attention? All that. So watch the attention video if you're curious on the step before this. This is behavior. Okay, so in behavior, it's important that you understand that behavior is a physical response. And even if we're talking about somebody's mental cognitive state, okay, they're thinking about something, that's still a physical response. It's just happening on a neurological level. So in gymnastics, a common problem of behavior is we see the physical behavior exist, but we do not ask good enough questions to understand the mental behavior that's happening inside of the mind. And this can show up in somebody's fear, their stubbornness, their lack of participation, what we might interpret as a coach being disrespectful, or somebody could even be disruptive in a way, be it through their behavior, but really it comes down to mentally, they're trying to get away from an idea inside their head and it's coming out in a physical behavior. So I believe that understanding the value of using behavior to drive towards your end goal and really taking the time to understand how important it is for us as coaches and business owners to really understand how we can use, basically like leverage behavior to benefit the outcome. So if you can really get on board with this, you're going to see a huge change in how you approach problem solving, essentially. Okay? So you have people and you have things. Basically what we're working with. We're either working with blocks or wedges or resi mats or foam pits or bars or vault or beam. We're working with things, right? We're working with things, cones, whatever it is, dots. We're working with things or we're working with people. All right. Things, this is the kind of the cool part that I guess backstory would be, somebody's walking through my gym from one end of the gym to the other end of the gym. And I noticed that they started walking around the equipment that was in their way. And it was like this huge epiphany to go, it's wild to me to think that an inanimate object that has no control over you is dictating how you're behaving. Like if there was a beam in front of me, I would walk around the beam, even though the shortest distance between me and my end goal would be walking under the beam or climbing over it. But the effort that it takes to do that, I would just go, oh, I'll just walk around it. So instantly, things actually have way more power than I even realized. And in that moment, I'm like, oh, I need to better understand this. So people, we see reactions, we see responses, we understand that there's going to be this physical response, this behavior, and they're going to dictate a lot of it, right? Humans are going to dictate what direction they're going to go in. I want to go over here, I'm going to go forwards, I'm going to go backwards. They're going to dictate the distance they want to go. I'm going to push this conflict as far as I possibly can with my behavior and see how far I can get with it before everything just comes tumbling down, essentially. So we can decide how far we want to go with something. We can decide how much energy or effort or force we want to basically put into the system, right? And that could be as simple as somebody just not hitting a mini tramp hard enough. And it's like, can you just push the mini tramp down harder because you'll go up in the air harder? And they're just choosing not to apply the necessary force for the outcome. And so people have a lot of control over this. Things have a lot of control over it too. So the cool thing about things is this. If I want somebody to move in a direction, well, I could just build a maze that they can't get out of the walls and the only direction is forwards. I could put objects behind them that now the only way for them to escape is to go through the process. So you could use things to force direction. You could make the risk of falling off an object so high that it'd be far better for me to stay on the object than fall off it. Now, I'm not suggesting you should increase the risk so that we get to injury, but I just want you to understand how things can be leveraged to the extreme to drive direction. Things can drive distance. If somebody is not jumping, let's say, far enough, I can change the surface so that they can jump further. So I can leverage distance. I could take an object and say, okay, so you don't jump very far from a level point, so why don't we stick a block underneath you, and then when you jump, you'll travel a longer distance. So I can leverage the distance, I get more distance just by changing the thing that is being used to acquire that distance. And then you have force. I can change the surface to either add or take away force. I can put in a squishier mat, so that now if their landings are bad, they're landing on a squishier mat, and then this mat is absorbing the force. Or I could put them on a trampoline, which then they don't have to try very hard because the trampoline is going to add more to the story as well. So now they don't add enough force, so I change the thing they're using to add the force. So now you can see this relationship, hopefully, as I just pointed that out. If the person is going in a direction I don't like, I can use something to redirect that behavior, because I can make it more difficult. I can go back to the attention conversation and make the risk reward so that now it's like, well, for them to go out of their way in this direction costs them too much because there's a thing in their way and they have to overcome that. They don't want to. So then they redirect themselves going in the direction you want. I can get it if a person is not traveling the right distance that I need, I can use something to help get them the right distance they need. If somebody is not able to apply the correct force, I can use something to get them to apply the correct force. And so I can now leverage this entire conversation to produce an outcome. And then once I produce that outcome, I create kind of this little process cycle where someone goes, okay, I want to learn a skill. Goes back to our number one problem, skill acquisition. They want to learn a skill, but they don't know how to use this appropriately internally themselves. And so I take things, mats, different types of equipment, different tools, and I use those things to help the person experience the skill they're trying to acquire. It's a fake experience because you're facilitating it, but you're experiencing it in a kind of simulated way. And then once they've experienced it, they go, oh, I kind of get it. And then you wean them off those things until that they're responsible enough to do it on their own without the aid of whatever tool you're using, okay? Now, all of this is basically so that I can build confidence in a person and get them to buy into the process. So I'm doing all of this so I can build confidence so someone can say, okay, I now understand how to go from I don't have a skill to I have a skill. And at the same time, I'm trying to get buy-in where they start learning to trust me because they now know I know how to leverage things. So whenever they get to a sticky spot, they can now trust that I'm going to get them to the next point. So the entire story here in behavior is basically influencing the behavior so that it creates an opportunity to validate them and their effort, or it redirects them essentially. But it's really, can I either validate them or can I redirect them? Validate them in, hey, you're moving your effort in the correct direction. Hey, you're traveling the distance I want. Hey, you're applying the force to make the thing happen. I'm using a thing to make it happen, but I'm validating their effort in the process. Then I take a little away, and then I validate their effort again because maybe, it was a flip that was really high, and then we went on a softer surface or a harder surface, and now the flip goes a little bit lower, but I'm validating their effort. I'm saying, hey, you're trying, and I'm getting them closer to the direction we want to go. Or I'm redirecting them. And so I'm using all of this to redirect their behavior, and then I, again, would hopefully go back into the validation side and say, okay, thank you for falling in line to the direction that we're trying to go, or being part of the process, or whatever it might be. So you could almost say that I'm redirecting merely so I can then come back over here and validate again, because I want to validate the effort of the person, and all of this is kind of going into that conversation. All of it, okay, with behavior. Why do I care so much about behavior, right? All of it is trying to align their behavior with care, okay? And in the next video, I'm going to be talking about care, but it basically comes down to people don't do what they don't care about. And so if somebody doesn't care to point their toes, they're not going to. If somebody does not care to run faster, they won't. And so a lot of our effort it comes out of a place of care. Now, you could change this to another four-letter word, which people oftentimes use, and that would be fear, okay? Yeah, fear absolutely could cause people, this can definitely cause people to act in a certain way, okay? But do we want people acting out of a place of fear? That it's not a very powerful place to come from. Care is far more powerful, okay? Because it's internally driving. When you care about something, you do it. And then therefore, it's self-driven. And so that goes back into my point earlier where I talk about basically building this business model that is self-sustainable and automatically drives growth. Because if you get people to care about the right stuff, then they're moving in the correct direction that basically produces sustainability and growth. But you have to get people to care about the right things. And so just by caring about how you want to use this to create behavior modification, essentially, and how you want to use it so you can continually validate the effort so that then you can align their behavior with care, the whole entire ship starts now moving in the same direction. You're like taking everybody and they're like cats, they're all over the place with their own version of what they care about, and you're redirecting the behavior and kind of telling them what they should be caring about, and you're funneling them into this big end goal, which again comes down to skill acquisition. What a person should care about, okay, comes down to a lot about what you care about, and that's what we're going to talk in the next video. So this is behavior. These are like the kind of the moving pieces about behavior and how you can leverage them to get the result that you're looking for. I hope that was helpful for you. Again, if you have any questions or comments, please attach them to the video. I'd love to hear from them or hear from you about them. And I look forward to sharing that video about care with you in the next one.